discussing CO2 footprint and have people traveling from all over the world. But again, I understand that people sometimes need to meet to get stuff done, and seems to be much more bullish ambitions right now, especially by the UN itself and the agencies, to push their agenda. And again, according to yesterday, there should be an agreement by 2030 for the heads of state to get to net zero. That's a goal. I believe net zero is not enough. We need net positive. That's actually why I'm interviewing next week, also having a fireside chat on an event with Paul Polman on his latest book. It's just coming out called Net Positive, and I think he has a point, where he gives concrete examples how business leaders can steer their companies towards a net positive and competitive, profitable, compelling, meaningful, but beyond just the net zero, because again, we need to get the carbon back into where it was before. So, but again, I'm hopeful that, let's say, compared to the other COPs where previous ones where there was much more talking and less doing, that this time people might really get it. And again, the words of the Secretary General of the UN was very, very clear, saying that we're digging our own grave and we have to be aware of that. And it's man-made and man can fix it. So I think it's an interesting time.
Must be the dinosaurs.
Yeah, on that note,
Yes, have you seen that little video? That little video the UNDP did this, where actually T-Rex is coming into the main hall and giving a speech on, extinguishing ourselves.
Yeah. And on the topic of climate change, Poppy just found a article from CNET that says, introducing the cost of climate change, the CNET Money team explores the impact of changing climate on financial issues from real estate to retirement. Because it's not enough that, we're all sliding down to an existential risk. We have to put it in monetary terms so that people can actually feel the impact preemptively. It starts off by saying, with a quote, "I think you should sell your home. It's going to get worse. I urged my mom on the phone. What are you waiting for? My parents, both in their 60s, are living in Northern California. We're hiding indoors with air purifiers on max to avoid inhaling the smoke and air pollution caused by nearby wildfires. It wasn't the first time. I worry about their safety and mobility in a part of the country that's been hit hard by the effects of our warming planet. In the last few years, drought, extremely hot temperatures, and wildfires have become more frequent in the region. Conditions only seem to be intensifying, and I wonder what financial moves today can lead them to a more sustainable life in the future." I had thrown about the idea of downsizing to a more climate-friendly part of the country before, to no avail. But this time, my mom listened. As I cautioned my parents, I had a parallel set of concerns for my own family and community on the East Coast. My husband and I were in the midst of draining rainwater out of our basement following the severe and swift passage of Tropical Storm Ida. Like many neighbors in Essex County, New Jersey, we were ill-prepared and were now paying the price. What investments could we make to mitigate damage the next time a flash flood or heavy storm hits us? Should we buy more insurance, install a metal roof, give up and move to Montana? Those are all questions. I've dedicated my career to exploring all types of money conundrums, but these newer considerations, prompted by the increase in urgency and climate emergencies, are on a different scale and scope, and they impact all of life's basic financial issues. As scores of governments, NGOs, and scientists convene in Glasgow, Scotland over the next 2 weeks to share research, policy positions, and potential solutions for our warming climate, we felt it would be worthwhile to explore the more practical and personal side of climate change in the U.S. The CNET Money team has spent many weeks and hundreds of hours researching and speaking with leading academics, economists, financial advisors, and most importantly, people who have already felt the impact of climate change firsthand. We have insights and strategies to share. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll outline some of the ways we might want to think differently about budgeting, real estate, and retirement. Okay, and then so what a tease. So they're going to be slowly rolling this out over the next 2 weeks. But the headline says introducing the cost of climate change. And then the blog post says, yeah, we're going to be rolling that out over the next 2 weeks. Wonderful. Thank you, CNET.
But there's a similar initiative which has not passed. I mean, the beauty of Switzerland is it's a direct democracy. So basically, every 2 months you have to vote on something. Whether it's on the county level, on the state level, or on the federal level. And that's also very nicely explained, even in the taxes. Where you live in Switzerland, what you pay, and what the cost is, and whether you have to maintain a hospital or not. And if you want to maintain a hospital, you have to pay more taxes in order to do so. So it's really transparent, and I love that scheme of a direct democracy. But on the other hand, I mean, the government had been pushing for a CO2 tax, and it didn't pass. It didn't get majority of the votes of the people. So you can see how important that is, the communication itself and the awareness, and to get it through, and not by creating necessarily a fear of something, but the understanding there's a cost to it, and we need to cover the cost in order to reverse the situation we have right now. So in the same sense here, that's what the Swiss government is trying to do already. But last time it didn't pass, so now they're still working on it to see if a second time a majority of the votes could be reached here.
Right. So there is another article here that says from CNET, these states are among the most vulnerable to climate change. Climate change causes devastating effects. So which state, according to CNET, is going to be most impacted by climate change? That sounds like a fun opportunity to play our favorite new show, Tech News Jeopardy.
Florida.
Is it, does it include small island developing states as a collective, or might some
Nope.
of them be?
These are major U.S. states.
Oh, states, not nation states.
Right.
Oh.
What's the question?
Which U.S. states will be most impacted by climate change?
Ooh, the one I live in.
Florida.
California
For sure. Florida, all the coastal states.
New York.
And the ones in the middle, the Colorado and stuff with the water, right?
So everyone got a lot of points. Bonus point for Vinay because he named number 1 and number 2. Messi and others and Shahin are correct. They list Florida as number 1, which will suffer from extreme heat, droughts, wildfires, inland flooding, and coastal flooding. Number 2, California, with extreme heat, drought, wildfires, inland flooding, and coastal flooding. Number 3, Louisiana, with extreme heat, drought, wildfires, and coastal flooding. And then the next one is Mississippi, with extreme heat, drought, wildfires, inland flooding, and coastal flooding.
Yeah, they're right on the Gulf. Yeah.
Yeah, they get the hurricanes too. Gee,
That's right.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, that was a precursor. Yeah.
Louisiana's going to get rocked.
And the number of hurricanes is increasing every year. So,
oh my God, it's getting ridiculous.
Well, the Gulf states are taking the brunt of it. That's Louisiana.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Alabama too.
Yeah. And then John Kerry, who used to be Secretary of State under Clinton, I believe, was it? Or Obama? I think it was Clinton. Obama. Who, by the way, I've met in person. He came to Stockholm to speak at my friend's event, and we got to have a few get-togethers and whatever. I actually really like John Kerry, and Biden has put him in charge of climate as sort of like the climate ambassador. And so he's kind of runs the issue of climate for the U.S. And he's kind of the main figure for the U.S. at COP26. There's a headline that says John Kerry, COP26 is creating more climate ambition than the world has ever seen. The U.S. climate envoy, meaning John Kerry, says he's heading to Glasgow summit as an optimist. And here's a quote. Glasgow has already summoned more climate ambition than the world has ever seen, says Kerry, speaking at the event at the London School of Economics on Thursday. And in that regard, Glasgow has achieved success. Well, let's hope so. Glasgow is the new beginning of the decisive decade, he said. The day after Glasgow, we need to keep this fight going, and together, my friends, let's get this done. It's doable. I hope so. And by the way, because he came to Stockholm, so did Obama. They both came together to my buddy's event 2 years ago, right before COVID. And so did Greta Thunberg, because she's from Stockholm, so not a very long journey for her. She walked to the event, actually. And Obama met Greta backstage and got to watch that go down. That was very cool. And then John Kerry got to meet Greta. And it was interesting to see they were kind of equally admirable of each other. I mean, obviously Greta kind of, respects and looks up to figures as big as Obama. But it was amazing to see as many people as Obama meets, no doubt. He clearly holds a special place, for Greta. That was amazing to see their kind of deep mutual respect. So, what else can we say? Let's get into the big headlines, shall we?
Yeah, just Tyler, just one thing, and I think we tend to forget we're talking about climate change.
Yes. Oh, by the way, I just for the record,
yes.
My friend Ash, who I bring in here regularly, who's half of Avicii, it's Ash's event that I'm talking about. That event where Obama and Kerry and Greta Thunberg. It's a very super exclusive event it's limited to 300 people only, invite only. Lots of billionaires are. The funniest part of that event is the billionaires who email flexing to try and get into the event that are not able to get in. And anywho, so when I bring Ash in, as impressive as his as Avicii was, this event is almost more impressive. But go ahead. Sorry to cut you off, Lauren.
No, again, yesterday I traveled to Glasgow because of a panel, and I was invited by the Global Environmental Fund, Jeff. And we discussed a little bit nature-based solutions overall. And again, what we discussed, there are three things which are putting humanity at threat to humanity. One is climate change. There's the other part is food security, whether it's water or just the industrialization of food itself, and that of putting a threat on the quality of food we eat, on our health and overweight and things, but also actually sourcing in the future will be more and more difficult. And then, of course, on top of that comes pandemics, because all of them are related, and all of them are predicted to increase. Like the hurricanes, more hurricanes and tougher ones. The same is also predicted for pandemics, just because of the way humanity lives right now. And these the three of them, you cannot disconnect them, because they're basically all pointing towards a vicious circle, the three of them, but they're interconnected. So if we fix certain things man-made, we can resolve it, but we should have an eye on the three factors in order to avoid in order to find solutions for humanity in the long run.
Okay, so let's jump into the headlines here, because there's a whole bunch of headlines. The top one today, where's our air horn? There we go. Tradition, everybody, is from Nikkei Japan. It kicks us off today. They say they have sources that Apple has cut back on iPad production to allocate more chips to the iPhone 13. iPad production was down 50% from original plans for the past 2 months. US tech giant produces 50% fewer tablets than planned in September and October, because there's, we gotta keep these iPhone addicts happy. Makes sense, because if Apple has a big contract with some TSMC, which they do, and TSMC is like, listen, we can make iPhones for you or iPads, but not both. What do you want to do? And they're like, great, make the iPhones. So they're cutting the production on the iPads. Makes sense. There's a sister headline from Bloomberg, Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, that says chip shortage hits Apple at its worst possible time ahead of the holidays. Yep, that's true. it's going to be an interesting holiday season this year. The next biggest article, number 2, is speaking of Apple, that I guess the new operating system for the laptops and desktops has come out, which is called Mac OS Monterey. And the headline says, some Mac owners report that upgrading to Mac OS Monterey bricked their computers. And bricked is a slang tech term, meaning it turns your laptop into a brick or a doorstop, meaning it's junk, it's garbage. You can no longer use it. And that's scary when that happens. So it might be wise to wait for a little patch or something to come out. Mac OS Monterey released last week as the latest version of Mac OS is bricking older Mac laptops, rendering them unusable and unable to even turn on, according to a number of reports from users across social media and online forums. Okay, so if you have an older one, be careful and back your shit up before you upgrade, would be the message there. The next one is that Biden administration urges Congress to subject stablecoin users, that means everyone using stablecoins, to federal oversight, like banks, and subject stablecoin users to federal oversights like banks. And there I wonder if they mean every stablecoin company must have an oversight as if they're a bank, and limit their interactions with non-financial companies, such as Meta. Let's read this one. If U.S. lawmakers don't act, regulators have the authority to take their own measures, according to a long-awaited report from President's Working Group on Financial Markets. So a group of U.S. regulators urged lawmakers meaning Congress, to subject stablecoin issuers, there it is, not users, issuers. So that's a key difference. So stablecoin issuers, like Tether, to the same strict federal oversight as banks. Makes sense. If they want that thing to be treated like a currency, then the government should treat it like a currency too. In a highly anticipated report released Monday, that was yesterday, Congress should also require custodial wallet providers to be regulated by a federal agency and limit stablecoin issuers' interactions with non-financial companies such as tech or telecom providers. Yep, they're basically saying, great, we're going to treat this shit just like we do fiat, essentially. The President's Working Group for Financial Markets said the later recommendation appeared to be aimed squarely at Facebook for their Diem controversial stablecoin project. The controversial stablecoin project created by Meta, the social media giant previously known as Facebook. Makes a lot of sense. So that the report is part of an escalating effort by policymakers to rein in this $138 billion segment of the broader crypto market to mitigate the risks they believe stablecoins pose to consumers, markets, and financial systems. Stablecoins, or cryptocurrencies pegged to the value of another asset such as the US dollar, have seen explosive growth over the last 2 years despite lingering questions about their backing. Here's a quote: "Without safeguards, I think the industry and regulators alike think we might miss out on some potential benefits of financial innovation," says Treasury Undersecretary for Domestic Finance Nellie Liang told CoinDesk. So I think there's a common appreciation of needing a framework that isn't too onerous, provides protections, and can keep the innovation moving forward. If Congress fails to pass such laws, the regulatory agencies have the authority to take their own measures. However, the group gave the impression that it would prefer that it doesn't happen. Here, another quote: "We believe legislation is important," says Liang. "This is a new technology, a new innovation. It shouldn't be surprising that the current regulatory framework isn't set up to address some of the new kinds of risks that this could pose." Yep, exactly right. Congress may be willing to get involved. Members of both parties have been engaged in discussions around regulating cryptocurrencies at large and stablecoins in particular. Okay.
Tyler,
Yes.
Ken is in the audience. I think he has some comments. Do
Okay.
you want to pin the article?
Sure. Here, I'll pin it. Boom, boom. And here it comes. There it goes.
I mean, the threat here is people who are earning interest on their assets when they invest either in stable coins or other crypto. And I think the administration is scared that money will move out of traditional banks where they're not paying interest or they're charging interest.
Yep. Exactly right. Well, some of these places are offering as high as like 8%, I've heard, which is in this environment's kind of, you can understand how this could become needs to be watched very closely. Because I think it's fair to mention, happy to debate it though, that the traditional banks themselves are like WTF because we're not able to offer anywhere near 8%, let alone 2%, 3%. Ken?
Yeah, but Tyler, sometimes the interest is in like other crypto. It's almost like a payment in kind bond. Okay, so and I could explain what a payment in kind bond is, which actually came out of the junk bond stuff. It's like when the companies can't afford to pay cash, they pay you in other securities. That existed before crypto. And the one thing I can tell you, having done a lot of high yield, is that when you have companies that are using a payment in kind mechanism, they're very risky, and then they often ultimately have issues, even with payment in kind. So, I mean, I don't buy that they're just this is like a conspiracy just to protect the
The banks?
traditional banks. They're
No, I
worried
agree.
about it's a systematic risk. Yeah.
I
But
agree.
this one is about stable coins, and I think you remember we discussed this some months ago that one of the reasons central bank digital currencies are not as urgent in the US as they are in other countries is that the US already has several stable coins that are doing quite fine, thank you very much. And between USDT and USDC and a few others, it's a quite substantial amount of money so the problem is that these stable coins are essentially becoming the central bank digital currency. So
But
it
they
makes
can't
sense for
maintain the
the
peg because they don't really have the assets. That's the whole issue that happened with Tether. And I can also tell you that like pegs never last. When the Mexican government tried to peg the peso to the dollar, and they kept issuing bonds to buy dollars, so they would have enough dollars. People wanted to convert their pesos to dollars. Eventually, they ran out of money, and they devalued their currency. So I mean, that's the problem with the stable coins is they really don't have the reserves of dollars, to do a 1-to-1. I mean, it's just period. Any of them.
well,
So
some of them are supposed to be one to one, and some of them are a little bit less than that. And I'm not perceiving that stablecoins in the U.S. are having any issues right now. The point, however, that I'm trying to make is that these stablecoins are essentially becoming the central bank digital currency in the U.S. So it makes sense for the administration to want to put it under federal supervision.
I agree.
For that matter, the U.S. dollar is not pegged to anything. It doesn't have any real backing. The Federal Reserve is buying bonds from the Treasury, right? So it's a bit of a Ponzi scheme in itself.
yeah,
Well,
but obviously people must like dollars because otherwise you couldn't sell the stable coin. The whole purpose of the point of the stable coin, why it's called the stable coin, is that it's pegged to the dollar. So obviously they decided that the dollar must be good because they could have pegged it to the British pound. They could have pegged it to the Russian ruble. So, but they didn't, did they?
no, the dollar is the Microsoft Office of money. It's like the standard. There are others, but who cares, right? It's like,
That's funny.
you have other options, but and just like that, it's very sticky. Try going away from it. You can't. It's hard. And all you can do is like grab on the peripheries and try to get a strain that might grow in the future. And there are countries trying to do that. But I think that the USDT. I mean, the US is just in a very different situation. Now, I think the reserves for some of these currencies are pretty close to one, if not in fact 1-to-1. Some of them say that they are. I know that your
Tether just got fined like $40 million, which was like a slap
but
on the
that's
wrist.
exactly, that's like nothing. That's not even a slap on the wrist. That's like
I
You know,
understand. Well, that, yeah,
yeah,
I understand that. I'm not like defending that it was that low, but basically, they don't. I mean, I think maybe they only have. If you get right down to how many dollars they have, it might only be like 3 cents for every, you know, 3%. Not, everyone thought it was 74. 74 is more like, if you, depending what you want to count with other assets, and it's you can't maintain a peg. Okay, it never
I
happened.
understand. I actually think you can maintain a peg and try to get some transaction fees to make it go, but know exactly how much USDT. So New York Attorney General filed a suit and they settled, and it really didn't become as big a deal as people thought it might be. And it carries on. It's like hovering around $1, a penny up, a penny down for like months now. So it is pretty stable for all
And one of the
practical
concerns,
purposes.
right, and one of the concerns in the report is what happens if there's a so-called run on the bank and everybody wants to convert,
Right.
okay,
Sure.
and they can't handle it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's an exposure. Yeah.
Okay, moving on is the next article is that Facebook, now known as Meta, takes down a troll farm run by the Nicaraguan government since 2018 that involved 937 Facebook accounts, 140 pages, 24 groups, and 363 Instagram accounts. The company Facebook says it took down hundreds of accounts, pages, groups ahead of Sunday's election. That's why they took it down just prior to the election. Well, that's one way to piss the government off, because that's a big part of why they made those accounts, because they wanted to influence the election. Meta's Facebook has accused the Nicaraguan government of running a troll farm with hundreds of fake accounts as part of a sprawling disinformation campaign that has sought to disparage critics and boost support for the government ahead of the elections this weekend. What a weird fucking world we live in. Wow. The company said on Monday that it had taken down nearly 1,500 accounts, pages, and groups across Facebook and Instagram apps in October, which were in part of a troll farm run by the government, that the ruling Sandinista National Liberation Front Party. The operation, active since 2018, was among the largest directed by a national government, borrowing from the playbook of Russia, whose St. Petersburg troll farm was accused of attempting to meddle in both the 2016 and 2020 U.S. elections. Oh, let's put a little pin in that thought, because that might come up in headlines in days and weeks and months to come. Just remember, I almost want to bookmark this article so that we can bring up the receipts that Russia was using, weaponizing social media to meddle in U.S. elections in 2016 and 2020. By the way, they do it everywhere, with every country they have any interest in at all, particularly Eastern Europe. I was in Moldova when the coup was happening, or was a potential coup was about to happen. And boy, they use social media is one trick that they use to influence elections. They have several other tricks that they use to influence elections, successfully sway elections. And in the case of Moldova, they did successfully shift the government from a Democrat election or government to a communist government while I was there. So it's Putin doesn't play around. He's very engaged in influencing elections, particularly countries that have some impact on Russia. The accounts were primarily run by employees in its telecommunications regulator, based in the Postal Service headquarters in Managua. Facebook said, marking the first time a troll farm has been found to have been run from an official government building. Ouch. They made no effort to even obfuscate the source of the troll farm. The accounts and pages were followed by nearly 1 million users, 784,000 users. This was one of the most cross-government troll operations we've disrupted to date, with multiple state entities participating in this activity at once, the company said. Several other smaller clusters of fake accounts were run from other government entities, including its Supreme Court, y'all. And the Nicaraguan Social Security Institute. The fake accounts were run from entities including the Supreme Court. Wow. Wow. The report comes as Nicaragua prepares to hold a general election on Sunday. The president, veteran strongman Daniel Ortega, has been arresting political opponents, journalists, and activists to cement his hold on power. Ortega, 75 years old, first took office after the Sandinista Revolution, which overthrew a U.S.-backed dictator in 1979. He took power again in 2007 and has ruled the Central American nation of 6.5 million people ever since. The U.S. government has imposed sanctions on Nicaraguan officials, accusing them of undermining democracy and committing human rights abuses. The State Department in October called Sunday's election a sham. The Nicaraguan government did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Meta has faced recent criticism from a whistleblower for not doing enough to police its platforms and ensure the safety of users in non-Western markets. The operation, which also spent $12,000 on advertising, worked on a clear schedule from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, with an hour for lunch in the middle of the day and only a skeleton crew at the weekends. Well, yeah, I mean, hey, government trolls, work by very precise hours in very specific government buildings. Too funny. It started in and around April of 2018 as Ortega's regime was cracking down on protests in an offensive that killed hundreds of people. Until 2019, the fake accounts were focused on denigrating the opposition before shifting to artificially amplifying praise of the standing government, the report said. In addition to fake accounts, the government also set up fake media brands and impersonations of existing political opposition organizations. The troll farm made coordinated attempts to report government critics in a bid to get them removed from the platform. That's the genius bit right there. Because if you have thousands of accounts, you can all coordinate to flag your opponents and, kind of group ban them in a way, or attempt to anyways. The troll farm made coordinated attempts to report government critics, also to report content that began to expose its own existence, including photos from inside the troll farm. The operation spanned other social media platforms, including TikTok, Twitter, and Telegram. Oh, how interesting. You saved... That's literally the last sentence of the entire piece. That this was happening on TikTok, Twitter, and Telegram. But, of course, the whole article is about Facebook. And that's the point, is it's happening on Facebook because that's the app with the biggest reach, and it's happening on TikTok and Twitter and Telegram. But the journalists, as they've been saying lately, Facebook is becoming a victim of its own success. Now that it's reached a mass scale, unlike anything, it's more popular than even televisions or fucking microwave ovens. Of course, you're going to have people using it. And this is to try and police. It's not their responsibility to police, not legally, because nobody ever built a platform thinking I need to police every fucking user, all 3.5 billion fucking idiots of planet Earth. That's a lot of stupid people. Do you know how many stupid people there are out of 3.5 billion people? That's a lot of really stupid people that you have to police. Every Karen video you've ever seen, every idiot that you've ever encountered, Facebook has to police all those. I would dare say at least 1 billion out of those 3.5 billion. Statistically, on an IQ bell curve, about 1 billion of those people are technically what are called fucking idiots. And so you've got a very difficult job as a tech platform that you built, that you thought, you assumed, you know what, people are generally reasonable, and we're going to provide this platform, and we're going to put it out there, and Turns out, there's a lot of fucking idiots who are really going to make an utter shit show of the whole scenario, and they didn't realize that they're going to have to police this thing. If you're building a city, you're going to need jails and police. Well, geeks don't think about that when they build platforms, in fairness, and they certainly understand it now. And you're actually not going to start policing until you actually have crimes. And then the crimes come, and then you start policing, and then you have to build jails and do all this stuff you never anticipated. It's big money, big problems over there for Facebook. But what an interesting article. And it turns out that in this case, the aforementioned idiots turn out to be the government itself that you have to police. That's where it gets really weird. Is you're now fighting the country's government about how they're using your platform. This gets really weird because the government technically could tell Facebook, you do what we want or you get out. Nicaragua could do that. They could tell Facebook, hey, you don't like how we're using your platform? You're no longer allowed in our country. That might be next. Now that Facebook has shut them out, Facebook has taken the move in this article of shutting down the government's use of Facebook in the way that they would like to use it. Now it's no longer of use to the government the way they like to use it. It's very likely that Nicaragua now doesn't want Facebook to operate in their country, because if it's able to operate without their controlling it, they don't want it. It's going to work against them. It's not an asset. It's a liability. Get it the fuck out of our country now. If we can no longer control it the way we were previously controlling it, we don't want it. You're done. No more Facebook in Nicaragua. That will be very interesting to see. I have to assume if they do win the election, they will have to do that. They won't have a choice. Because the platform, now that it's properly policed from the bad behavior, which they were the instigators of, it's the people will now be able to use it how they wanted to use it, and against the government will be defenseless to stop it, and now it's a huge liability, hence get it out. Well, then what? Okay, so you did the right thing. You policed your platform in Nicaragua, for example, or a country, and now you got kicked out. And that pattern will happen all over the planet. And so now you're going to have, I don't know, half the countries on the planet without Facebook because you started policing your platform. And now your shareholders are like, we don't like this. Now the value of your company is about, I don't know, 25 to 35% less than it was, 3 months ago.
Tyler, can't people access Facebook through a VPN? So as long as the country has internet access, you really can't stop people from getting this from using Facebook.
Yes, but in China, my friends, like say every time you have to log on VPN, so that make them less and less use Facebook, unless they want to get contact like us outside China. So, and even in China, the VPN is controlled by the government. So sometimes, like during the committee or some important days, the VPN's speed is so slow that even can get a connection, you cannot see the content. So I think, Tyler, I have theory. So maybe their opponent, another party, secretly pay the Facebook to do something like that. So maybe the one who accused by the Facebook right now, maybe they won't win the election because of this one, because it's exposed. They manipulate the social media and the public opinions. That's what happened in China because Facebook is bound there. They can control Facebook or other Western main media there. So that's why even Facebook try to ban the things China doesn't like. I should say CCP government doesn't like just I said, the number 64, if you type in Taiwan's Facebook replies, sometimes your account will be suspended for 3 days. So maybe because of the election, so maybe their opponent just has to say they convinced or they have another deal with the Facebook to do this operation. I don't know. That's something happened here all the time because the government and the other party, when they trying to win the election, everybody's trying to do the spin control on the media. So you may do something under the table to try to do the effort. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm reading a bunch of the tweets on this one. Okay, yeah, it's a weird one. All right, next up is from Bloomberg. They say they have sources that Zillow is pitching institutional investors on the sale of 7,000 homes for about $2.8 billion to recover from buying too many, which it blames on its bidding algorithm. This is interesting stuff right here. Let's read this one. Zillow recently stopped new offers.
I think it's pronounced Zillow, isn't it? I mean, that's what I've always heard it like Zillow, not Xylo, but that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's what we're talking. Let's find out. I would love to know the answer to that.
It's Zello.
I think it's Zillow too.
What?
In the US call it
I wonder what
Zello.
it's in reference to. Might help answer that. You know,
Well,
we can.
I understand the article because I'm the one who sent. At least I sent you one. I don't know if that's the one you're using. So no, Zillow, which has basically been initially was a service that would get you the price of homes and it kept track of comparable sales and things like that, and it was used by real estate brokers. In the last few years, and they're not the only ones. Other companies they got involved in actually buying homes. They would buy them and flip them. That wasn't their original business, and now apparently they've got a big inventory of homes that are according to some analysts, a lot of them might be underwater, and so they're reporting tomorrow. By the way,
It's pronounced Zillow.
Zillow, yes.
I just went to their YouTube account and listened to one of their videos, and one of their representatives pronounced it as Zillow. So that's good enough for me. So Zillow, it's a real estate company where traditionally people were buying and selling homes, and then more recently, Zillow decided to get into the game and started buying the houses themselves. And
that's correct.
That's an important context for this story, where it says Zillow seeks to sell 7,000 homes that it purchased, and it's looking to sell them for $2.8 billion now that they've stopped this, what's called house flipping, where you buy a house, fix it up, and sell it. Zillow recently stopped new offers of buying more homes. Online listing giant Zillow has been buying thousands of homes. Zillow Group is looking to sell 7,000 homes as it seeks to recover from a fumble in its high-tech home flipping business. The company is seeking roughly $2.8 billion for the 7,000 homes, which are being pitched to institutional investors, according to people familiar with the matter. Zillow will likely sell the properties to a multitude of buyers rather than packaging them as a single transaction, said the people who asked not to be named because the matter is private. A representative for Zillow didn't immediately comment. The move to offload homes comes as Zillow seeks to recover from an operational stumble that saw it buy too many houses, with many now being listed for less than it paid. The company typically offers smaller numbers of homes to single-family landlords, but the current sales effort is much larger than normal. If successful, the sale would make a dramatic dent in Zillow's inventory. The company acquired roughly 8,000 homes in the third quarter. 8,000 homes in 3 months. Jesus Christ. According to an estimate by real estate tech strategist, Zillow shares dropped 8.6%. The stock has slipped 22% this year. through Friday after nearly tripling in 2020. The company is scheduled to report earnings on Tuesday. That's today. Zillow recently said it would stop making new offers in its home flipping operation for the remainder of the year, though it continues to close on properties that were already under contract. The decision came after the company tweaked the algorithm that power the business to make higher offers, leaving it with a bevy of winning bids just as home price appreciation cooled off a bit. An analyst of 650 homes owned by Zillow showed that 2/3 were priced for less than the company bought them for, according to an October 31 note. I think they leaned into home price appreciation at exactly the wrong moment. It says one executive, Zillow put the record number of homes on the market in September, listing properties at the lowest markup since November 2018, according to research. It also cut prices on nearly half of the U.S. listings in the third quarter. There we go.
Right. So blame it on the AI.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how this sneaks in as not insider trading. These guys knew what these properties are worth, and they were trying to, lowball the people, get the a price that they think they can flip the houses and make a huge profit of it. It reeks of, insider trading.
I agree.
And I don't know. They should have their hands slipped.
Yeah, I feel no sadness for them. I mean, the other sad thing is they're raising real estate values everywhere where they're buying up these homes in these neighborhoods. That's just
and then blame
pure
it
greed.
on the AI. It's the algorithm that did this, not us.
Yeah. And I feel bad for all the people that they outbid who sincerely wanted those homes to live in. And they were doing it just on pure greed. There's a lot of places in the world where that's not allowed. So next up,
this is greed, pure greed.
Yeah, Amazon
But it's
says.
Also,
go ahead.
It's a serious service if you're trying to sell the house, because they reduce the number of days it's outstanding, and you may not get exactly, but you complete it and move on. I think, in fact, there are other companies that are trying to do that. They look at Zillow, and I think Zillow changed their algorithm for pricing such that the pricing is supposed to be, quote, conservative now rather than aspirational. So there are companies that say that we, sight unseen, we will buy it for like 80% of what Zillow estimates the house to be. And if you're in a hurry to sell, that's a great service, I think.
Okay. Next up is from Amazon says that TikTok's app is now available on Fire TV, which is Amazon's operating system for TVs in the US and Canada, and is coming soon to Echo Show devices. Next up, Reuters says a leaked memo that TikTok's CEO will step down as ByteDance, the parent company's CFO, to focus on running TikTok full time. TikTok's chief executive officer named Xiaozi Chu the TikTok CEO, Xiaozi Chu, will step down as its parent ByteDance chief financial officer to focus on running the short video business full time. Okay. Next up is from Bloomberg. It says Kaishu's CEO, called Su Hua, is stepping down. And this is another one of China's biggest companies. So here you've got back-to-back, one from Reuters, one from Bloomberg, of two of China's biggest apps. The Kaishuo is, if I recall correctly, kind of the Instagram of China. And yeah, the Xu Hua, it says billionaire Xu Hua cedes CEO role to co-founder Chang Jinjiao. Su will focus on long-term strategy at TikTok's rival. So these are competitors in a way. The two companies, TikTok and Kuai Xiao. and
快手，
Kuaishou.
怪兽.
Yes.
快
So
快手 it means quick hand, 快手.
怪兽.
and Kuaishou and TikTok are competitors, and both CEOs are stepping down to a degree. This is really interesting. It's happening simultaneously. So that implies that there's something happening in China that's causing this.
But at the same time, that ByteDance they are reducing their working hours to from the
Yes, their official working hours are now 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. 5 days a week, instead of 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. However, there was a social media campaign by tech company workers highlighting how this is just a complete bullshit to comply with the government. The government's enforcing this because they believe people aren't having kids when they're working 6 days a week, 12-hour days. So, but the social media campaign by the actual employees is saying this is complete bullshit. We're still working the same hours. Now we're not getting paid for the actual hours we're actually working because the company's trying to tell the government that they're now complying with the new hours, reduced hours, but they're not. And they're showing videos of themselves working past 7 p.m. and working on Saturdays when they shouldn't be working. So Kuaishou and TikTok CEOs both stepping down. That's wild. Okay, next one
They're not
is...
stepping down from being CEO. They're stepping down from their other duties. So they're becoming full-time CEOs now.
Yeah, they're both... in the case of Kuaishou, it says Kuaishou CEO stepping down will remain chairman, and that the fellow co-founder will be the new CEO. And in the case of TikTok, it says TikTok CEO will step down from their role as ByteDance CFO. So you're right. The TikTok CEO still stays this TikTok CEO, but will no longer be the parent company's CFO. So the next one is that after a 3-day outage, Roblox says it's back online. We covered that yesterday. They're still quite ambiguous as to what the real cause of the outage was. And we need an update on the banking outage from Sweden yesterday. So if any Swedes in the audience can help us out with that, that would be fantastic. Nicholas, I'm just looking through our Swedish friends in the audience who might be...
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not related to the banks, but it's related to Microsoft. Microsoft is bringing back the infamous Clippy. If you remember that little paperclip thing?
Yes, of course.
They're bringing it back.
Okay.
I was happy when that thing was killed, and now it's back.
Okay. So the next one is, it says Generac Holdings to buy smart thermostat startup Ecobee for $650 million in cash and stock. Another company called DGene, which uses AI to create holograms of humans and objects for use in AR, VR glasses and hologram displays, raises $20 million, led by Alibaba. And then the next one from CNBC says Alibaba and JD.com, which are China's two biggest e-commerce portals, are promoting quote-unquote sustainability rather than hyping single days sales this year amid China's regulatory scrutiny and quote-unquote common prosperity push. And the next is a Q&A interview with Meta's Andrew Bosworth on how metaverse content will be ranked and displayed, balancing between private conversations and moderating content and more. So this is Facebook's new incoming CTO, who is the person that runs Oculus and their whole VR and meta universe, Andrew Bosworth. And he'll be taking over the CTO role while still running Oculus, which is now called Meta. The whole company's called Meta. He plays he's essentially a number 2 at Facebook, like Sheryl Sandberg. And this says Meta's Andrew Bosworth on moving Facebook to the metaverse, the magnitude and technological shifts that we are trying to manifest here hasn't been attempted in a long time. Let's see if we can get a juicy quote here. Oh, it's actually an audio interview with Nilay Patel, who's the big boss over at The Verge. And the first question says, from Nilay says, I want to get into everything you guys just announced at Connect. And Andrew says, this is probably someone else's story to tell more than mine, especially Alex Schultz, who was pretty masterful at the scale that this company operates. To have this held out as long as we did was, I think, pretty spectacular. Obviously, one of the names you see us investing a lot in is Horizon. Yep, that's the other name we thought they might rebrand to. And at some point, you had to make a choice of, well, you want the entire company to be a metaverse company, but you also want to have a product within that. So we talked about worlds and rooms and home as kind of these three pillars of what Horizon is. So that was one of the ones that we were discussing. I know you took a shot in the dark on that one. It was a near miss. Yeah, so interesting how they're highlighting the brand of Horizon as well. It was a good scoop, man. We didn't know how you did it. Don't tell me. I don't like having the surprise ruined for me. Oh, what's he referring to here? The question from Nilay was, I have to know, what were the other name options? Because over the last week, I'm sure you've seen, there have been a lot of guesses. I personally would have loved the Washington football team, but I was really curious if you could just give us a little short list of what the other options were. And he acknowledges that Horizon was an alternative to Meta, which, wow, we were, kudos to Cheryl yet again. Here at Tech News Around the World, we only had two names, which were Horizon and Meta. And Andrew Bosworth here, who runs the show there, confirms that was pretty much, from his perspective, the other name as well. So we were about as close as you could get by proposing, and Cheryl deserves a lot of credit because we based everything based on the trademarks that were registered for Horizon and Meta. And so before the big announcement and the live stream, we went into that event saying it's going to be either Horizon or Meta, because those are the two trademarks that are related to everything they need to do. Well, I got to say, that even deserves a, where's the audio effects? Cheryl gets an official clap. Because it seems it was even closer than we even knew, that it could have gone either way there between Horizon and Meta. And that's what we said going into the event. Wow. Well done, Cheryl. So, and then Nilay says, I thought it might be Horizon. Meta was the other one on the shortlist. And then Andrew Bosworth says, you sent me a DM and you're like, it better not be just Meta. And Bosworth says, I just didn't respond. Reporters troll me all the time for information and you just can't respond. I didn't respond. And then today, the moment it was announced, the first thing I did was reply to that response. Yeah, you did. And I should say, you mentioned Alex Schultz earlier. For people who don't know, that's Facebook's chief marketing officer. Yep. Okay, well, very good. So it's a very long interview. It has an audio interview as well as that you can listen to. So the next article is from the Wall Street Journal, who says they have sources, aka leaks, that Apple plans a crash detection feature in next year for iPhones and watches, which measure the spike in G-forces to detect car accidents and auto-dial 911. The safety feature is also planned for Apple's watches in 2022, according to company documents. And that's yet another leak that Tim Cook is obviously working to crack down on.
Allowing.
The next one is from Reuters.
We got way too many leaks from Apple this last couple of weeks that it's unheard of. Something is going on there. It's either doing this deliberately or they have a big problem.
Exactly right. And then the next one is that an Indian logistics startup called Delhivery, instead of delivery, it's delivery with an extra H, like Delhi. It has the word Delhi in the name. Delhivery. Very clever. backed by SoftBank, files for a $1 billion IPO. Indian logistics startup Deliveries, make no mistake, 2020, 2021, and COVID brought us global delivery in a holy cow, in a way that everyone tried to do back in '99 with the web van and what all the other. There was a whole bunch of companies that was trying to do delivery way too early, but it took COVID to make it all a reality. So the next one is from Reuters.
No, but Tyler, there's an important distinction between Webvan and Home Grocer
Sure,
and the
there's
ones
several.
today.
Yeah.
No, well, the biggest one is that Webvan and Home Grocer made these massive investments to inventory the goods themselves, where like an Instacart basically is going to existing supermarkets and picking the stuff up, so they don't
Yep.
have to inventory, all
Yeah.
the produce and everything. Yeah.
So Tyler, one more thing from India, right? So
Yep.
the other interesting thing was all the unicorns coming in this year. The other interesting thing is there's a lot of VCs who are going to be making loads of money this year with all the IPOs. So Zomato, Delivery, Nykaa, a lot of the unicorns from about a year to 2 years ago are all going IPO this year. So SoftBank is going to make a ton of money in India this year,
Yeah.
just in their IPO exits, tons of money.
Yep. Well, by the way, there's a lot of Chinese investors who want to invest in India who cannot. They're not allowed to. SoftBank's from Japan is allowed to. SoftBank is very well connected with China. SoftBank has more money than anyone on the planet to invest in India. Where do we imagine that money's coming from? Those $60 billion is very likely being funneled from China through SoftBank into India. So a very interesting potential move there that we've not seen anyone kind of we've not seen that headline yet. That's a bit of conspiracy theory on my part, but I think that headline's inevitable. The next one is that Hong Kong-based Sandbox, which lets users build a virtual world using NFTs, raises $63 million from, you guessed it, SoftBank, and investing in a Hong Kong company in China. And then the next one says China-based Mocha, spelled M-O-K-A, which aims to automate the talent acquisition process for Chinese companies, raises $100 million from Tiger Global. South Korea-based autonomous transportation as a service. Those are interesting words. Autonomous transportation as a service. Yep. That sounds like the future right there. Transportation as a service. I just need to go from A to Z. I don't care how. And it's autonomous. Yep. That's the future right there. It's a startup called 42 Dot, raises $88.5 million. And the next one, Chipper Cash, which provides cross-border payments services in Africa, raises $150 million, led by another startup, which is FTX. So we've got fintechs investing in other fintechs in Africa, which makes a lot of sense. The next one, SoFar Ocean Technologies, which makes IoT devices for ocean data collection, raises $39 million from Union Square Ventures. And India-based neobank called Fi, which focuses on young working professionals, raises $50 million. And Global Telecom's Mint, spelled M-Y-N-T, which operates mobile wallet app Gcash, becomes the first tech unicorn in the Philippines after raising over $300 million at a $2 billion valuation. And indeed, it's always the fintechs that become the first unicorns in any new territory or geography, because you need the fintechs to enable the other companies to build on top of. And then a company called Octo Machine Learning, OctoML, which helps enterprises optimize and deploy their machine learning models, raises $85 million from Tiger Global. And then a company called When I Work, which helps businesses manage shift scheduling, timesheets, and more, raises $200 million from Bain. And Mosaic, which makes software to automate construction planning, raises $44 million. You notice there's a whole lot of automation in all of this. Pinterest to launch Pinterest TV shoppable live series on November 8th. So here comes social commerce on Pinterest in a very big way. And that's going to make, if Pinterest does that correctly, Pinterest is going to fucking explode. Absolutely explode. They already have tons of products on Pinterest that people want to buy. Tons. Tons. And yet people aren't really able to buy it the way that they would like to. And if Pinterest turns into Pinterest TV, live shopping, they're going to 10x their revenue. Pinterest is publicly tradable, is it not?
I think it is. I think wasn't PayPal thinking about buying them and they backed out or something.
Yeah, and
I
then
don't know.
they claimed it wasn't going to happen.
I just
Looking
don't
at
remember if they're publicly traded. But I remember PayPal was going to buy them, and then
yeah,
PayPal
45
backed out of it.
billion
Yeah.
valuation.
Didn't
looking.
Jay? I don't know if you're available, but I don't know why I thought that Jay was at Pinterest at one point in his career. I don't know if
So,
he's around,
so
but
Pinterest IPO'd in April 2009 at $24. It went up to a high of $85 6 months ago, and it's fallen since then over the last 6 months back down to $45. So it went from 24 3 years ago to 85 6 months ago, and lost half of its value in the last 6 months down to 45, halfway down to its IPO price. That's looking like a potential long-term position entry, as we call it. And that chart looks quite.
I honestly don't know where to put Pinterest. Honestly, it's like one of those companies that it exists, but I don't know what to do with it.
If they successfully do social shopping, live TV shopping, this company will double in price in the next year.
Like QVC and other
Yeah.
ones.
And they are in a perfect position to do it, given the platform they are and the user. It's a very female. Their user base demographically skews female, which might be in what we've seen in Asia. There's a ton of buying in social commerce, and I would say that it's a demographically that leans more female as well. Pinterest is in a perfect position for that. It's a very visual platform, so the users are already accustomed to that. The sellers,
it's like a lifestyle app, wouldn't you say,
yeah,
Tyler?
yeah,
I mean, I think back in the day how my mother used to order recipe cards. They would come in the
yeah,
mail, and she would change or swap them out with our neighbor friends, and
yeah,
and so I think that it's that plus scrapbooking plus home decorations plus so yeah, you're absolutely right. It definitely has kind of the mall market and probably beyond, but
yeah,
for creatives, people that want to create and make a house a home.
right. And based on what you and I know of how social commerce works in Asia, doesn't Pinterest come to top of mind of the apps that will likely benefit from converting to social shopping in the US?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, because people get ideas, they share ideas, they're inspired. So it's already a little bit social, but it doesn't seem like it was an intentional, connection that people were making. But I've never really used it, but I know that you can search other people's boards and, so if you like someone's style, you can, start to follow her and get other ideas. Yeah, but I think that it would do well. But I seem to remember Jay saying that part of it was just kind of the culture of the company at one point in time, at least, where they missed out on a window that could have made them, one of the first movers in this space, because it was kind of this organic idea, inspiration sharing, not really an app, but website. And, the everyone else kind of caught up and passed them, but I do think there's still opportunity for them to regroup and be more intentional about going forward.
yeah. Currently valued at 28.7 billion. That's not crazy high. Yeah. And it did go
And
up.
PayPal wanted
Yeah,
to
the
acquire them.
PayPal acquisition rumors caused it to jump momentarily from 52 to 58. And then when it was revealed that it wasn't happening, it fell to 45, which is, it's even on a technical trading basis, it's at the bottom of what it can be. It can't really, there's, in the short term, as a trade, it really can't go much below where it is now on a technical trading
I,
basis.
I honestly don't see a future. I know it's maybe a little bit pessimistic. I just don't see a future. It has a lot of competition on all fronts and doesn't have its own like sort of like identity or niche or something that is worth all of this. I don't know.
Tyler,
I
on
don't
the
know. A little bit.
technical, I mean, on a technical trading basis, it's still showing like a, I mean, which is not really the subject in this room, but it's a triple top that really hasn't recovered from. So it
Mm-hmm.
still might continue to go down. You have to see some sort of recovery
Yeah,
because otherwise, it's yeah.
interesting one to watch. They could turn that around in a very big way. Anywho, it'll be interesting to see when this starts on November 8th. So if there's a major Pinterest user amongst our group in the audience, that would be a fantastic, if somebody could watch how the whole live shopping thing happens on, I mean, maybe Magda and, but we have an open invite to anybody in our regular audience here. If you're a Power Pinterest user, if you could check out what they're doing November 8th with their live shopping, what they're calling Pinterest TV, and report back, because that could be a real turnaround moment. So the next one is, well, now we're done with the tweets. To go into the, we're done with the big headlines, and now we go into the tweets. And one of the tweets we got, there's a whole bunch, is that Burger King and a side of crypto from USA Today. Would you like some crypto with your fries? Burger King and a side of crypto. Burger King teams up with Robinhood to give away Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin. Burger King announced Monday that it was teaming up with investment platform Robinhood to offer what they call Royal Perks. Royal Perks loyalty members the chance to win a side of cryptocurrency, including Doge, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, starting Monday. The offer comes as cryptocurrency, a digital currency, continues to gain interest. Maria Posada, the vice president of digital guest experiences for Burger King North America, told USA Today in a statement that it was a natural fit to partner with Robinhood to offer crypto to customers with current conversations around cryptocurrency. The fast food chain is offering crypto in a way that's accessible and digestible, literally and figuratively, through our food. November 21st, or while prizes last, Royal Perks members who spend $5 or more on the Burger King app, website, or in restaurant using a code requested during checkout at participating locations will be rewarded with cryptocurrency. The primary.
I did this today, so I can actually tell you how it works.
Okay.
I actually did it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think this was
so
one of the original use cases for crypto.
excuse me.
This was one of the original use cases for crypto, right,
Yeah.
Kenny?
So first of all, the crypto they're mostly giving you is Dogecoin, because somewhere when you get to it's in the article or something, it's going to tell you that they've inventoried 20 Bitcoin, 200 ETH, and like 2 million Dogecoins. So so the crypto you're going to get is kind of like the McDonald's Monopoly game, and there's only one boardwalk or something. That would be like the chance of getting Bit rather than Dogecoin, but in any event, what happens is you go in, you use the Burger King app. You spend your at least $5, whatever. Okay, and then they will email you like a QR code, and then you have to open an account at Robinhood. So what actually happens? I just played it through. I wanted this because I don't have an account with Robinhood now. I do today because of this. So basically, it takes you to a Robinhood account. You actually have to go through and open a Robinhood account like any other brokerage account. We'll go through all the forms and sign this, sign that, blah blah blah. And then and the one thing I kind of refuse to do, and then therefore I don't have my crypto yet, and this is like to me is a little fraudulent. Robinhood is insisting that you link a bank account to the Robinhood account to open the account. Now, I had securities licenses, okay, so and I've opened brokerage accounts before, for both for clients and for myself, and even when I'm, out of that regulatory business, I have brokerage accounts. You do not have to link a bank account if you don't want. You just want to open a bank account in most other brokerage firms, like a Fidelity or something. You could just send a check, or a bank order or whatever. You don't actually have to link a bank account. They're trying to force you to link a bank account, and quite frankly, because Robinhood is so unstable, I don't want my bank account linked to them. Okay, I was
Right.
willing to open the account for Burger King to deposit the crypto in. Okay, but I'm not going to link my bank account to basically get, because I'll probably end up with Dogecoin. They'll give me one Dogecoin, which is worth 29 cents, and it isn't worth the risk to me. Okay, so it is a bit disingenuous, but that's how that deal works, by the way.
Okay.
If I can talk about the original use case that
Sure.
was, I think, proposed like maybe 2013, something like that. And it was to substitute all those points that you get, miles that you get, whatever things that you get from restaurants, airlines, I don't know, movie theaters, all that stuff, with something like tokens or satoshis. And you accumulate these over time, and guess what? They are worth something in the real world, and they're worth something for the place that they gave you that stuff. So this is the miles on steroids sort of crypto version, and I think it can still work if more companies decide to give you more points, other than their monopoly points, but more like real crypto points, and maybe it'll be the equivalent in satoshis or whatever. But it means that whatever points that they give you, they're transportable. You can take them somewhere else, and maybe that's not a great thing unless you're on Ethereum, where you can have like a smart contract associated with them, where you can only use them one place but not another. So it is still there, and this is like a use case that is crying for someone to actually adopt it, or many vendors or outlets to adopt it and start using it for their combined reward, whatever system miles that they have. And now the people actually get something that is worth something elsewhere, not just their monopoly money going around. So that's the use case that I wanted to mention. I saw it back in 2013 or 14, and I actually like it. I think it can still work if
Yeah, but
more
it's a
companies.
tremendous barrier forcing someone to have to open a brokerage account. Number one,
Yes,
and then to link a bank account to the brokerage account. I mean, it's so far from airline miles. I can't even tell you.
right. But Ken, remember in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, you didn't even have to do all of that stuff. You just needed to get some sort of a wallet, and it will be deposited in your wallet somehow. And that's it. You're done. No questions asked. They didn't even care about your name or your ID or anything. It was that simple back then. Not anymore.
Okay.
Back to you, Tyler.
Are we ready? We'll jump into the next one
Sure.
here from Poppy. Really interesting one. Meta, previously known as Facebook, they have a touch-sensitive robotics skin headline that we read about yesterday, and now this article from newscientist.com, which I will share the link here at the top of the room if you give me 2 seconds. Copy. There we go. Hopefully, I don't think that'll work. Yeah, it didn't work. So it says that the new touch-sensitive robotic skin that they're working on could form part of the metaverse. Ding, ding, ding. I want to know who wrote this article because you're correct. Chris Stokel-Walker from New Scientist. You're correct. That's exactly the point. The thin, replaceable skin that allows robots to feel could help in the construction of the metaverse, the potential virtual future of the internet being developed by Facebook and others. The skin, jointly developed by Facebook and Carnegie Mellon, combines a rubbery plastic less than 3 millimeters thick and studded with magnetic particles with an artificial intelligence to calibrate its sense of touch. If you look at how AI has advanced, we've made huge advances in computer vision and sound, says Meta AI research team, but conspicuously, touch has been missing from this advancement. And that's right. And adding touch to the metaverse would blow people's minds if you're able to actually feel things in virtual reality. Then it becomes just barely virtual at that point. And boy, particularly when it comes to porn in the metaverse. Oh boy, if you think the birth rates are low now, watch out. So then I'll tweet that one out as well to the Tech News Twitter account. There we go. Oh, and somebody
I managed to PTL too. Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. So the next one, I'm tweeting it now so Cheryl can see it on the Twitter account and hopefully share it in the room here, is the first robotic pizza restaurant called Pazzi, staffed entirely by robots, which can handle everything from order taking to prepping the dough to boxing the finished meal. A new pizzeria called Pazzi is being staffed entirely by robots, which can handle everything from order taking to cooking, making the dough, making the pizza, putting it in a box with these robotic arms that I keep ranting about, which are programmable. And thankfully, this article has all the photos. And the other interesting thing about this is how small this pizza restaurant is. It's like a large kiosk, essentially. And it's an actual legitimate pizza oven. Like a legit pizza oven. And this restaurant appears to have about 1, 2, 3, 4, I see 4 different arms. One for the oven, one to assemble the pizza, one to put the pizza in the oven, one to box it. And you got yourself a full-on legit pizza restaurant in the size, because these arms take up way less space than humans do. And it no doubt works 24 hours, 365 days a year. This gets very interesting. Take a look at these.
It's cool. It's really interesting, Tyler, isn't it, to kind of think, traditional pizza order on the phone, someone prepares it, and a person comes out to deliver it. This is just the inverse. You order on the app, no one speaks to anyone, no human has been involved in it, and then delivery right to your door with no intervention, like where is my pizza, because you're just tracking it on location.
That's a great point. Is the delivery aspect could be autonomous as well. Oh man. Now you've got a cash machine.
I just wanted to ask a quick question, just because maybe this doesn't sound as surprising for me, but in Tokyo they have those vending machines that can build pizzas for you. It just sounds like a vending machine with extra steps, doesn't it?
Well, the vending machines typically don't make the pizza from scratch. They're kind of like microwave pizzas, or cold frozen pizzas that they then heat somehow, probably in Tokyo, probably a microwave, and then like that. This is a legit dough pizza.
Yeah, I guess that's where the extra steps comes in, but does it also include like shipping and for receiving the materials and everything?
No, I think you
like
have to bring you bring the materials, and then it takes it from there. It says that it has taken 8 years of research and development. Its creators are 2 inventors, Cyril Hammond and Sebastian Reverso, both passionate about robotics and electronics since childhood, who began designing the machines in family garage. The goal has been to reinvent the fast food experience with a fully automated system that is more convenient and empowering to customers while maintaining the same or better quality food as conventional restaurants and also being environmentally sustainable. Pazzi builds on the success of a pilot tested at the Val d'Europe Shopping Center in 2019. The 120-meter square establishment is more visible and centrally located than their earlier demonstration, being opposite the famous Pompidou Center in Paris, benefiting from high attendance. To select their pizza, customers are invited to access terminals at the restaurant or the menu on the company's website. The order is then sent to Patsy, and the automated system handles everything. The inventors worked with 30 engineers and other experts to perfect the technology, which is assembled from 2,000 different components. The robots are fast enough to produce 80 pizzas an hour. Holy shit.
They're on
Okay,
fire,
that's
Tyler.
really impressive.
The other little cut in is right. You know, if you're on, I know pizzas don't correlate with diet, but if you do have a certain macro, blah blah protein count, you can imagine. You know, the article says they make it more accurately. I mean, it's a great example of where you just say, right, I want this on my carbs, this on blah, and it's precise measurement. So yeah, you can imagine it certainly going down well with the more precise foodies out there.
Yeah, it says it makes 80 per hour, which is one every 45 seconds. Humans? Checkmate. Holy shit. Baking 6 at a time for a total of 5 minutes per pizza, with screens displaying the order progress. The robots move and flatten the fresh dough, spread out the sauce, place the ingredients, cook the pizza, then put the finished product in a recycled box and cut the meal into segments. Patsy can even personalize the quantities of ingredients as desired, identify and correct imperfections, and replace them as when necessary to ensure optimal preparation. Customers have the choice of collection by click and collect, eating on site, or home delivery. Veteran chef Thierry Graffagino, 3-time winner of the World Pizza Championship in Italy, developed the recipe for Patsy, including the dough. He's helped engineers to teach robots to replicate the movements of pizza makers in order to make the robotic experience visible and unique. When I met Cyril and Sebastian, I told them that the first criterion for me to join the adventure was good pizza dough, says Graffagino. Today I'm proud because we got there by working together thanks to the talented and responsive teams. Patsy offers ultra gourmet pizzas with very good ingredients and a great show for families and children. In the age of... Oh, and there's a YouTube video. Let me...
I was just about to ask if there was a video. That'd be awesome.
Here we go. Let's try this in the account. Let's see if Clubhouse can share a video. There you go, right at the top of the room. I will tweet it out as well, as we always do from the Tech News Twitter account.
This is so cool, Tyler, because you know the way Track My Order on Domino's was pretty decent, right? Because you didn't have to phone up and say, "Where's my order?" and you get this generic answer of, "Yeah, it's on its way." You know which precise step in the process is. But you can imagine this being like an echo back to Taylor's Pin Factory when they did the time and motion studies. Because you look on the app and it's basically a countdown, like the Uber thing, saying, it's 2 minutes away. And they can do that with real clarity because every step is monitored in this thing.
Right. Yeah, they could just beep you and say, hey, your pizza's going to be ready, and it has a countdown clock. So you can go walk around the neighborhood and come back at precisely on the second,
Cleaning and maintenance feels like a big unknown in this.
It says, in the age of COVID, there's a growing demand for safer and more responsible ways of buying consumer items such as food. This has included an increase in online deliveries and contactless payments. For example, Patsy's fully automated system can provide a further benefit due to the lack of human-to-human contact involved in the on-site making and selling of pizzas. The robots can also work continuously without taking a break. Once installed and operational, no additional humans need to be hired, trained, or paid, except for a remote monitor in case anything breaks down. This saves money for Patsy, although there are clearly debates to be had about the social economic impacts of technological unemployment. We are in a very fast process with the perfect control of time and quality, since we have constancy offered by robotics, and then an environment that is quite cool and relaxed, says the co-owner. The idea is is also to spend a few pleasant minutes watching the robot while you wait for your pizza to be made. While we have brought together talents, engineers, developers, chefs, and manufacturers and investors, opening our robotic pizzeria in Paris, the food capital, is an accomplishment that consolidates our model and ambition to put robots at the service of fast, transparent, and theatrical catering. Patsy's also committed to the environment on a daily basis. With pizza boxes that are recycled, the company, which raised $10 million, actually $12 million in funding, is now planning to expand its operation to become an international chain. Starting with Switzerland in 2022, the food robotics market is expected to reach $3 billion by 2025, according to industry analysis. Robot service units in general are growing rapidly, and their worldwide numbers are forecast. Okay, now what's interesting about this is if this works at this location in Paris, and this location in Paris can become profitable, they can replicate that now that they've done all the hard work. 99% of the work is done. They can replicate it perfectly, identically, if it becomes profitable. If this little cash machine actually makes a profit, they can replicate that cash machine thousands of times around the planet very quickly and multiply that
Or
profit.
Tyler, is this going to be one of the, like that movie, The Founder, where these guys develop it, but Domino's copy and paste it, or X copies and pastes it? I don't know, just a thought.
The copying the robotics is going to be tricky. I mean, they invested in heavily over, it says 8 years to get it to where it is today. And I don't doubt that. What's interesting is what they invested in is the real company, the robotics and how they got it to work and how to do all that it does and blah, 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 blah. But make no mistake, and I've said this many times in this room over the last few months, these robotic arms, if it can make a pizza from scratch to delivery, hamburgers will happen. A lot of restaurants will happen. I mean, they picked a pizza for some reason, but the access to these arms, the cost of these arms is dropping just like lithium batteries and solar panels and everything else. These arms are going to become ubiquitous. Make no mistake about it. They're going to become more cost effective than humans in the very near future, in part because the cost of humans is going up very considerably as we speak, at the same time that the cost of the arms is going down considerably as we speak. When those lines cross, then you have this magic moment where it makes no sense. Your business will die if your neighbor, your local competitor does switch over to robots. You have an economic disadvantage. They have an economic advantage.
Well, we've seen this already in factory lines, haven't we, Tyler? Like manufacturing, this is literally played out play for play.
Precisely. So it has a massive snowball effect where, just like solar panels and batteries, the more of them there are, the more scale there is, the cheaper they get to make, and the costs keep going down and down and down, just like every tech gadget you ever bought. They start out expensive, like big HD TVs used to be expensive, like computers, like laptops, like smartphones. You get to mass scale, the price goes down, 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 way down, 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 down. And then you've got the robotic arms today cost about $5,000. They conceivably will get down to 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, and eventually 1,000. And China's already licking their lips over this idea.
See Moore's law for more detail. The other connection, Tyler and team, is, Ken, the whole crypto for Burger King story. I think this company would benefit way more from doing that sort of thing, because they could echo back to the early days of crypto. I would do that if I was in their marketing team.
I want to watch this YouTube video that we have pinned at the top of the room, so you get a real feel. There they go. There goes those arms.
Yeah, I will watch it. If the dough really tastes as good as they say,
holy shit! Yeah. You got to watch the video pinned to the top of the room, y'all.
It's
They
going to be
don't have to
great.
taste good. They're just going to be really consistent. You're going to get the same pizza every time you order it, and that by itself is quite an achievement. Now remember, these might find their ways also into homes. So you might be able to get like a nice expensive one of these and it'll do pizza for you at home or maybe something else.
Now you know why the Italian is not the one who come up with this technology, because they don't want to be replaced.
Tyler, whatever I'm going to just say is probably not going to be the most popular opinion, but I think it's a similar sort of situation that, at some point in time, like we thought that, it's going to be better to actually bring those practices in the farming. And now we have the corporate farming. It's all good to bring the automation in all the processes and everything and brings in the optimization into the whole thing. But there is some sort of like has to be an end to it. Like if you're going to be sort of like eating the pieces, which is going to be, we're already eating the pieces, like frozen pieces at times. We are just like bringing in from the, all the retailers bring in home, like put that in the oven and just start eating it. Like it's just so superficial. I mean, you're taking this human element throughout the whole
But
process
Kuran, there's already a lot of pizza delivery service now. I'm not sure about your area, but in Asia, in Tokyo, in
No. I
Singapore,
understand
it's
that.
everywhere.
I'm talking about the actual manufacturing of the pizza. I totally get it. Like if the Amazon has to actually put all the robotics in their supply chain and putting the boxes together and every single thing, whatever is shipped out to us, it totally makes sense that it brings in the optimization in the process of the supply chain and everything. But I mean, come on, let us have a great pizza made by human hand. I mean, this is like,
You didn't
get to a
watch the
level where
video,
we're
yeah?
going to, not yet.
The
The
pizza looks
the video
really
looks cool,
the
Tyler.
pizza looks better than most human pizzas. The pizza looks really good.
It's definitely
Question,
better
Tyler,
than
on the robotics, right? The 8 years of R&D. Like, where is the IP? Is the IP in the overall like thing that they've stitched together, or is it in like a certain like a Boston Dynamics dog, or like I haven't got a good read on that
Well,
area,
they
but
didn't.
is it?
These robot arm. I don't think they made the robot. They're not making. They're not a robotic arm company. They're buying pre-made robot arms. They have to program them, and today that's still relatively difficult. Just like here's the example I would give. It used to be to have a blog on the internet. There was a technical hurdle to do that. You used to need to know a little bit of programming to make a little bit of a website, a landing page, blah, blah, blah. Now anyone can go to Wix, click, 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 bing, bing, bing. 10 minutes later, you have a website and a blog. That used to require, there was a technical burden to do that. And an e-commerce site, you used to have to go to Magento and build an e-commerce site with a checkout. And boy, you needed code and you needed to know how to maneuver the Magento site. And there was a lot of friction. It was not open to everybody. It was like, 1 in 1,000 people had the chops to make an e-commerce shopping cart site. And then today, anyone can have an e-commerce site. You go to Shopify, click, 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 boom, 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 bing, bing, bing. You've got yourself a little e-commerce site. My point is today to build, to program, or you can buy anyone can buy a robotic arm for $5,000. The difficult part is training that robotic arm to do what you want it to do, like make these pizzas, like put the pizza in the box, like cut the pizza, like, whatever. And that is difficult today. And there's a 1 in 1,000 people who could figure out how to do that. Maybe 1 in 100,000. And my point is, Google is built a team under the Alphabet brand umbrella to make the operating system for these robots that, no doubt, knowing Google, they will give away for free and will make it super, super simple. And they will continue to simplify that process until it's brain dead simple, until it's boom, 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 bing, 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 click, 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 super ridiculously simple. That's just what geeks do. We're going to continue to simplify that process until Uncle Joe, Aunt Betty, Grandma Sue, Uncle Bob can turn their little restaurant into a robotic arm restaurant. And it might take 10 years. But make no mistake, it's going to happen. And when everyone can do it, when that software that enables a huge market to open will cause the scalability of the hardware, which will drive down the price down to $1,000, and then it's game over. So the software will lead the adoption that drives down the price of the hardware, which will drive the mass adoption, which will drive the the inevitable change, because just on an economic basis, you won't be able to compete. And it has this bizarre consequence where it's going to, as it replaces more people, it drives up its own competition. While the price pressure, the downward price pressure on the robotics arms goes down, the price pressure of the humans goes up. And that gap just widens and widens and widens, and it's just sort of an inevitable thing, which is why, a lot of factories are already fully automated. That, back in the day, you watched in those old black and white videos of people making pencils by hand. No one's making pencils by hand anymore. Those are all done by robots for a very specific reason, and that those robots are now coming into the consumerized space, or mom and SMB space. Here it comes in a very big way. And my God, a number of jobs that will be replaced is mind-blowing.
I think some of the robots, some of the factories will have large capital requirements. Some of these robots will remain very expensive. And so I'm interested to know if there's a need for like a community factory. If I think about apparel manufacturing, car manufacturing, imagine that there's a community factory. So now you can, instead of having a 12 or 18-month window of a life cycle for developing your product, shipping it, prototyping it from Asia onshore to a Western country, you can have a community factory that can deliver your prototypes or garments, almost instantly.
Well, make no mistake, as Craig knows, Scandinavia is going to be the first. Scandinavia and maybe Switzerland, but Norway will be the first place where this is employed, because Norwegian costs for the employees at McDonald's this is why McDonald's in Norway have very few humans already. Like 3 out of the whole restaurant. They've automated as much of it as they possibly can already, because it's already cheaper to put in robots than humans in Norway, for example. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Yeah.
And it's not fast food either. It's slow, quote unquote, medium fast food.
Tyler, just quickly to your point of usability, it's kind of already happening. A lot of these robots, they started out where you had to use a kind of 3-axis G-code-esque sort of system where you actually had to program it. A lot of them now actually let you manipulate the arm, so you can move the arm, put it in recording mode, move the arm yourself as a human to the positions that you want, and then it will record it and play it back, and then from that point you can adjust it. So that usability for the average person is kind of already getting there. And just going back to the original story about the pizza place, I think that's a really good test. Kitchens are pretty hazardous environments. You've got fluids everywhere, you've got grease in the air, you've got particulates from flour and that kind of thing in the air. All of these kind of things get into joints and into gears, and they get into the lube that's used in the gearing systems and everything else, and they clonk it up. If this company can prove that it works in such a hazardous environment, that's a pretty good sort of like merit badge for them going forward for further deployment.
Yeah, the interest one thought that just came to my mind is, and I say this kind of half in jest, but like France is known for, more than anywhere where they, workers' rights, and that would also might be one of the first places where you would see a human resistance to robots replacing humans. France comes to mind in that regard. So,
especially when it's to do with food as well, Tyler. So take
right.
national treasure, couple it with something that people are almost militant about in terms of rights. You've got like a nice cocktail to go off there.
Right.
The other thing, Tyler, is the 10 million of funding in this. Like, counting up the robots, 5 million a pop. Like, it's interesting. I'd love to see the attribution between the 10 and the configuration of the software, the operating system to run it, and the actual hardware, because I like your hypothesis, i.e. the configuration being the lion's share of the money going into, because the robot actual hardware being more commodity.
Yeah, so I'm pinning there's another pizza restaurant with a robotic arm. I just pinned it to the top of the room here. And you can see the robotic arm by looking above my head. And that robotic arm clearly says on it twice in nice red letters the logo of ABB, which is one of Sweden's biggest companies, which makes it's the world's dominant player in robotic arms. In all transparency, they participate in my events each year, and where they bring a robotic arm to my event to kick everybody's ass at ping pong and shooting a basketball into a hoop and Connect Four and everything else you can imagine, where they have a camera looking at, if people know what Connect Four is, Americans do anyways. It's this little fun, bar game you play, and the camera can see the move that you're making and it wins every time. Like, it's not even fair. Like, it's, a supercomputer running, that's programmed to dominate at Connect Four. And it can shoot a basketball into a hoop flawlessly every time. And it can do ping pong flawlessly with a camera. So I've been watching these things for a while, and it's quite amazing. But ABB is the legacy dominant player in this space. But even their arms are the ones I'm talking about that are today the kind of prosumer / SMB designed arms are $5,000, and the prices have been going down very steadily over the years. And China has already said this is our moment to shine. There's going to be a demand for millions of these things, and we're going to be able to make them way cheaper than the Swedes do. Which they're right; they absolutely will be able to do that. And the question is, to me, the software. And again, here comes Google with their operating system to collect all the data, yada, yada, yada. They can know how many pizzas are made in this location and how fast and everything else. We just give you the operating system to collect all that sweet data. And really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I agree. And again, I go back to pose a question to the room. I mean, if the costs of these robots, maybe restaurants is a bad example, but let's say it's a different product that's more sophisticated, and the cost of making the little factory is prohibitive for one business. Is there going to be a need for a community business, or will it just be a bigger proprietary company that manufactures all kinds of goods for the community?
Well, it'll be a franchise, won't it? That'll include a service charge. So it'll be much like McDonald's and their ice cream machines, where it's just outsourced to a company that provides everything, including the servicing and maintenance.
By the way, there's a hamburger version, a fully robotic arm hamburger franchise now called Cali Burger, C-A-L-I Burger. And yep, there it is. And it's caliburger.com here, and it's just like the pizza restaurant, fully automated. Let me go ahead. There it is at the top of the room. Here it comes. There's the link right there. And they've already have how many locations? Quite a few, and they're planning to go big very quickly. So they're already in the US, Mexico, China, Kuwait, Malaysia, Philippines, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Sweden, Taiwan, and United Arab Emirates. And in the US, they have about a dozen locations. They've got about a half dozen in Mexico, 1 in China, 2 in Kuwait, 3 in Malaysia, 5 in Saudi Arabia, 1 in Stockholm. Well, I'll be there next week. Where is it? Near Tabby Centrum. Okay, I will go check it out and report back.
This is a cool. Sorry, Tyler. Just quickly, this is a cool example of where 3 of our themes in this room are coming together, like the ghost kitchens, this robotic stuff, and then also like the drone delivery, because you can imagine that getting stitched together and just being like, I don't know, pretty awesome.
Well, it's gonna get interesting. It's gonna here it comes, and I told you it would come to Sweden real quick. Like the next one. Yes,
I'm gonna go check it out tomorrow.
Okay.
It's in Linwood.
But the Cali burger in Taiwan is not automatic, so I'm not sure. Maybe not everyone has those robotic arms.
Okay. Yeah. Was that Craig that was talking?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sam.
Okay. Yeah. If someone can go check it out. Let us know. So
yeah, I'll check it out tomorrow. I will check it out tomorrow.
Okay. The next article is from Business Insider in India. It says Elon Musk, the world's richest man, has said he's willing to sell his Tesla stock and spend $6 billion to end world hunger. This comes in response to a tweet made by David Beasley, director of the UN's World Food Program, the UFP. Let's read this one to get a little more detail, because this is one that's quite an interesting headline here. Where's the link to the article? It looks like a massive tweet thread. Here it is. Got it. Okay, here we go. And now I'm sharing it at the top of the room, as we do, and also sharing it on the Twitter account for everyone listening elsewhere, as we do. There it goes. Here we go. So who's this Elon Musk guy, and why is he spending $6 billion to end world hunger? It says, Elon Musk, the world's richest man, has said he's willing to sell Tesla stock to spend $6 billion to end world hunger. This comes in response to the director of the UN's World Food Program. In his tweet, Beasley had mentioned the $36 billion increase in Musk's net worth after Hertz ordered 100,000 Teslas. Now, by the way, an upcoming article that we're going to share in the next 10 minutes is that Hertz, in fact, has not actually ordered 100,000 Teslas. So hold that thought. Anyhow, back to the article. Beasley also added that 1/6 of that increase, which is $6 billion, could help save 42 million people who are suffering from famine. And now I see in the article that's pinned to the top of the room that CNN Business had a headline on October 26th that said 2% of Elon Musk's wealth could solve world hunger, says director of UN Food Scarcity Organization. Elon Musk responded to that by saying, if that guy from the UN World Food Program can describe on this Twitter thread exactly how $6 billion will solve world hunger, I will sell Tesla stock right now and do it. And to that, we must use the clap sound effect, because that would be perhaps the world's largest single donation from a philanthropist to a single cause.
Yeah, but what Elon Musk, I think, is really suggesting is he knows $6 billion can't solve the world hunger
Right.
problem. So he's basically saying, yes, when you can prove to me that my $6 billion can do it, I'll give you the $6 billion. But
Right.
$6 billion to do it, yeah.
Yeah, and he said to do it on this Twitter thread. So I'm tweeting the thread out right now to the Tech News Twitter account. There it is. It starts with Elon's tweet. And then he has a follow-up tweet, which on October 31st, where he says, but it may be open source accounting, so the public sees precisely how the money is spent. So he wants everyone to see the response. And then David Beasley responds the next day, November 1st, saying, Elon Musk, exclamation point. Headline not accurate. $6 billion will not solve world hunger, but it will prevent geopolitical instability, mass migration, and save 42 million people on the brink of starvation, an unprecedented crisis, and a perfect storm due to COVID conflict, and climate crisis. And then he does another tweet. David Beasley says, Elon Musk, with your help, we can bring hope, build stability, and change the future. Let's talk. It isn't as complicated as Falcon Heavy, but which is a great line, but too much at stake to not at least have a conversation. I can be on the next flight to you. Throw me out if you don't like what you hear. I got to say, I like his response. And then Elon responds to him. Please publish your current and proposed spending in detail so people can see exactly where the money goes. Sunlight is a wonderful thing. Gotta love that as well. David Beasley responds back. Elon Musk, instead of tweets, allow me to show you. We can meet anywhere, Earth or space, but I suggest in the field where you can see the WFP's people, process, and yes, technology at work. I will bring the plan and open books. And that's, again, I like the cut of David Beasley's jib here. I like his responses. He's clearly has intelligent responses. However, I happen to have worked at a company where Elon Musk was our board member. I know how Elon likes to communicate. And when Elon says, show me the numbers, I've been in that situation precisely that Mr. Beasley is now in, where Elon is saying, show me the numbers. Explain why, as somebody who has unique insight into this precise scenario. Because if you happen to be so fortunate as to have Elon Musk sit on your board of your startup, and you're in that board meeting, and you're trying to work out a problem, such as this, about solving world hunger, Elon is not, back to your point, Ken, I can assure you, you're right. In part, Elon's thinking, that doesn't sound right to me. I want to see the math. I want to see the numbers. And I've actually shared this insight many months ago in this room, and maybe Cheryl or Chris or some of the serious OGs in the room will remember this, that I explained how Elon works in these scenarios. He works on key principles of physics, like gravity, like inertia, and he boils everything down into first principles and simple physics equations, like E equals mc squared, and a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So he wants to know the key variables, and he wants to see how they add up. So, for example, he wants to know the price of nickel, the price of cadmium, the price of moving it from A to Z to assemble a factory, and do the calculus to find out if things add up. But he needs to be able to do that mathematical equation. So he's saying to David Beasley, show me the numbers right now. He's not joking. I can assure you he's not joking at all. And he will do the calculations in his head. And I have firsthand lived experience doing this in a boardroom meeting where we're doing a quarterly board meeting, and we're talking about pivoting the company from being a human-powered search engine into the world's first YouTube content factory, where we're going to make thousands of videos a week. And he's a board member. He's going to vote on this decision right now. But to make that vote, he's thinking, okay, how much does it cost to make a video per minute? What's the average length of a video? So you can already begin to see the math of how much would it cost to make a video. And he needs to know very precisely what we're currently paying per minute to make video content, and what's the average length of a video needed for YouTube, which is 2.5 minutes. Okay. Then he gets into other details. How much does the camera cost to make the video? How much is the hour? These were the questions. How much is the hourly rate of the person that uses the camera? Who else is needed in that equation? An editor. How much is the editor cost? How much is the tools for the editor? Etc. And he boils everything down into these base elements, and then leans back in his chair for about 30 seconds, eyes looking at the roof, doing some kind of crazy supercomputer calculation that only Elon Musk can do, and then he leans forward and says, I've done the math, it is doable, let's do it. And the other brilliant people in the room, super crazy brilliant people, also on the board, turn their chairs and pivot and look at him like, is that for real? Or is this some kind of game, or did you actually do some crazy Einstein, calculation? And he says, I did the calculation. It works. Like in a Hollywood blockbuster movie where you have to calculate and save the planet by making the meteor, move, and you got some that only a supercomputer genius could, do the calculation to save the world from catastrophe. And he says, I did the math. It works. And you're like, well, what is the math? And he's like, well, I'd have to explain it, and you'd have to draw it on the board or whatever. And there's, 50 different variables and how they all fit together. And it seems impossible, but that's what he does. That's his, one of his gifts. And hence why
he has Asperger's syndrome, right?
Right, but it's also why he and no one else is able to land rockets back on a floating fucking boat out in the ocean.
Hey Tyler.
Yes.
Along the first principles of solving this food problem, he would never sell his stock. He would borrow against it.
I'll explain why. Here. Because once he believes that he's got the correct, done the calculation, and he's got the answer, he believes that answer is math proof. And that a math proof is fact that other people are not privy to. He's discovered a fact that others have not. Mathematically, physically proven, like E equals mc squared.
That isn't the point that Craig was making, by the way. He's just making the point. If Elon likes the numbers, rather than selling the stock, he'd borrow against it so he doesn't have to
No,
pay a
I
tax.
understand his point, Ken. What I'm telling you is the reason he doesn't sell the stock is because he's figured out a math proof that others have not, and he's willing to bet the entire plan. If he could borrow $50 quadrillion, he would, because he's discovered a law of nature that others have not figured out, because he's done the math to solve the equations of gravity itself, and no one else has. Like when Newton figured out the equations of gravity before anyone else did, Newton would bet any amount of money in the world that he could predict something that others could not, based on the equations he's figured out that no one else has. I'm talking about the same principle. That's why he's so willing to bet every penny he's ever earned and any money he can borrow into every company. He's willing to take such incredible risks that no one else is willing to take, because he's discovered laws of physics that no one else has. Just like deciding, should we pivot the company into being the first world's biggest content producer for YouTube? Well, no one else can do that calculation in their head. They don't even know the right variables to ask the question. He does. So he figures out all the variables, puts them in the right order, does the calculation, figures out so it's correct, and is now willing to bet everything that he's correct. And if you say to him, I'm not sure, he looks at you like, well, you don't understand math. I am sure. It's mathematical. It's proven. There's no point in arguing it in his mind. And to you, you're like, well, let's debate it. And he's looking at you like, no, I'm not going to debate it because you're stupid. Your brain doesn't work good enough to understand that the math is the math, and it's done, and it's scientifically proven. It's God has already decided this is the reality. You can sit and debate it all you want. I've done the actual math that you cannot do. It's like trying to argue with a dog. It's like, I'm a human. I figured out 1 + 1 is 2, and you're a dog, and you don't understand that, and that's fine, and you need to debate it and talk about it endlessly. I've already done the math. I'm willing to bet $1 billion, trillion, quadrillion dollars that 1 + 1 is 2 because I've already done it.
Right. So the
Tyler,
math
was
on
he
this,
right?
by the way, if you actually I just looked up some numbers. A couple of years ago, the United States, what's called USA, this is just from the United States arm that provides food, for poor countries. The United States spent 3.7 billion, and just in that in one year. Okay, so if the United States spent 3.7 billion in one year, and obviously there's other programs, and that didn't solve world hunger, because you got to spend it every year, right? Because people need to eat every year. $6 billion isn't going to end this problem unless he comes up with something. And this is not what the UN guy asked him for. Unless you come up with something like Norman Borlaug or something, and you come up with dwarf wheat or something, where you actually get like leverage on your money. Okay, but simply coming up with money that which is really, I think what the UN guy was saying or something. Well, you got a lot of money. Why don't you give us some money because we need money for food? There's no leverage on that. They're just going to basically, spend the money on how we produce food now, and then you're going to need to do it next year and next year and next year, and $6 billion is a drop in the bucket. So.
But
So,
that's why the guy backtracked as soon as he was asked to produce
correct.
numbers, and that's when it turned
Correct.
out it was about COVID relief, not world hunger.
Well, check it out. So when Elon specifically says the words are, please publish your current and proposed spending in detail so people can see exactly where the money goes, he knows. And by the way, David, the correct answer in that scenario with Elon is, here's the numbers in the best possible detail that you can. And if the math works out, he might realize where you screwed up some math. You missed a couple of variables that you should have included. You included a variable that you shouldn't have. He'll do the whole thing in his head magically, like only an Einstein brain can, and then say, here's how much it will actually cost to end world hunger. And he'll tell you the number, the actual number. And he'll remove the variables and the expenses in there that don't need to be in there. And he'll add in other expenses you didn't think about. But to say, no, I really want to meet with you, I really want to do this song, he's got no time for that nonsense. That to him is, you are now clearly a charlatan. So, however, David seems to be very earnest in his in this, and we'll see where it goes. Now, keep in mind that this whole piece started with the CNN headline, 2% of Elon Musk's wealth could solve world hunger, says director of UN Food Scarce Organization, which is this guy. So he did get the guy to discredit the headline. saying actually it's incorrect. The first thing he says is headline not accurate. Okay, well then stop. Don't keep my name out of your mouth in writing, in saying things like that, because now you see what you've caused. So, but nonetheless, I do believe and I think you're right, Ken. I think Elon knows very well. He's already done some rough calculation in his head in a napkin form that there's no way 6 billion would solve world hunger. And so he was confident in being able to say, I'll do this right now because I know you can't do it. I agree with you. He did that calculation. However, I bet he does want to see the calculation. And I bet if it was reasonable, I bet he would do it. But he also wants to, I believe one other element is that he really does want this guy to show the math because he does want the world to see the waste and the inefficiencies. And I guarantee you there are significant inefficiencies in here that he's not willing to reveal. But it's a very interesting thread.
Yeah, Tyler, 100%. I think your analysis is just to the teeth, literally. I mean, every aspect of it. And I think, this particular point that we think, and especially these United Nations guys, like they talk about like numbers in a sense that, World Food Program and all those kind of things. Like they think that sacks of wheat and, barley and all that, like they're going to actually put together and they're going to ship it to certain countries where the hunger problem is. And that's how they think. They do not think from the sustainability point of view that how the certain part of the world actually has to sustain itself on the basis that, people have to actually get fed on pretty much like every year. So Elon, on the other hand, looking from the sustainability point of view and thinking that, these guys are just thinking of like shipping off ships and ships of food on these countries, whereas he's looking at from the sustainability point of view that I have to actually give them jobs, and that's how you can actually reduce the hunger problem. So you 100%, the way you literally laid out, that's what just in Elon has that, okay, let's see what they're going to bring in. But the ultimate, if you look at it from the point of view that how can you actually reduce, probably we won't be able to actually eliminate the hunger problem from the scratch, but the really fundamentally, it has to be a process through which you can actually employ these people and provide them the actual employment opportunities where they can actually feed themselves. It's not just giving them one-time fish and have to teach them how to actually fish. And that's the only way to actually reduce that hunger. There are like millions and millions of people like in India and Africa and those part of the world. I mean, how can you actually feed them? And the political corners are going to step in and say, okay, this free food is coming in, the sacks and sacks of wheat, and look what happened to Afghanistan. I mean, all this like $2 trillion has gone into it, but it's still there is the same problem after 20 years, primarily because the systems hasn't changed. The people didn't take the actual ownership of those things, that we can actually bring in those employment opportunities where the people can go into the factories or people can go into the farms and then earn their living. That's the way forward. By giving them the food is not the, Africa has been fed on for years and years through this way.